So the amicus brief that we filed in SEC versus Ripple was actually a follow-on to the brief that on behalf of the Chamber filed SEC versus Telegram, which was the first time the Chamber decided to weigh in on the issue of what is the legal precedent that the court needs to consider with the application of Howey and any existing case law for primary offerings of digital assets. A lot of the same themes that was in the brief in Telegram was within the amicus brief in the Ripple case, as well as a few additional concepts. So the primary objective was to make sure the court, and it's the same court, the Southern District of New York, knows that the current state of the law, the Howey test, applies to primary offerings of investment contracts. And to properly ensure the court understands the distinction between an investment contract and the subject of that investment contract. It's an important distinction both to the Telegram brief and the Ripple brief in that just because a digital asset is offered pursuant to an investment contract doesn't make the digital asset itself an investment contract. There's no legal precedent that would support that basis. And so that was one of the objectives of the amicus brief, to make the court aware of that distinction and ensure that the law is applied in the proper context when the court makes its decision in the SEC versus Ripple case. And just to follow on, in the Telegram case, the court actually, in its opinion, took that into consideration. It was extremely careful in drawing a distinction between the investment contract, is what it was deciding on, and did not go beyond that to provide any view on what law applies to the subject of that investment contract. So I think that was the first objective in the Ripple brief. The second was because the tokens at issue in the case, and the Ripple the Chamber did not weigh in on the XRP token or Ripple specifically in the facts of the case, but because the XRP token had been in the market for quite some time, it was important for the Chamber to also weigh in and remind the court that there is no case law that applies Howey in the context of secondary transactions. And the Ripple case really is about primary offerings of the Ripple offerings and the XRP token, not about secondary, but it was important for the Chamber and its members to also remind the court, to the extent they go beyond, the decision goes beyond the primary offering and covers secondary, that Howey does not necessarily apply. There's no law to support Howey applying in the secondary. And so the court would need to either create new legal precedent, drawing upon existing bills that we cited in the brief that were pending at that time. This was late last year in various House and Senate as proposals, or wait and not decide the issue on secondaries to the extent they wanted to weigh in until there was actual regulations on this topic or congressional action on this topic. And that was also important from a policy perspective for the Chamber to remind the court of the implications of no legal precedent on the secondary.